Welcome to Actualize, a podcast focused on the intersection of performance, ambition, and mental health. I'm your host, Rob Pintwala. My goal for the show is to not only celebrate success, but also shed light on the challenges and sacrifices that come with ambition. Actualize is brought to you by First Session. Launched in 2019, I started First Session to help you find the right therapist. First Session is purposely designed more like a dating website than a clinical website, as we're completely focused on helping you find the right fit the first time. My team and I interview and vet our partner therapists, so you can simply browse videos, see who you vibe with, and instantly book a session. Check us out at firstsession.com and see why more than 7,000 Canadians have chosen First Session to find a therapist. This episode is with Tessa McLoughlin, who is the founder of Kwench Culture Club in Victoria, BC, Canada. I met Tessa a few years ago before I moved to Victoria, and I immediately knew that there was something special about her. Tessa is a musician by training, but has since built an incredible community that is much more than just a co-working space. She founded the company being a newly divorced single mother of two living in a new city. Our conversation was very inspiring, and we discussed creativity, resilience, culture, and building confidence and conviction in life. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Tessa McLoughlin. Hi, Tessa. Thank you so much for joining me today on Actualize.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Thanks for asking me.
This is great. I wanted to give any listeners context around what you have created in the city of Victoria, BC, where I now live as well. And I think it's just incredible what you've created and what you continue to create. So please tell everyone about Kwench before we dive in deeper.
So I call Quench a culture club, and I that comes from the basis for me that I think that it's like it's a co-working club, I guess, but I call it more of a culture club because I believe that people stick around when there's good culture. Lots of co-working is really real estate based, and yeah, people need space, but and they'll come and use it, but you really want people to feel like they belong and they're in a space that's theirs. And that's what the difference is with Quench. We're really about selling culture. And yeah, and we're in Victoria, BC, mainly because that's where I live. Definitely when I got started, when I was talking about starting it, a lot of people were like, oh my God, don't do it here, do it in Vancouver. Um, but I didn't want to live in Vancouver. So there we go.
I love that. I know there's so many hints of just your conviction that I want to dive into deeper, but I love that. And I already think you've made Victoria a better place. About
Oh,
culture,
thank you.
when what did culture mean to you as you were growing up, as an individual, and when did you sort of start to kind of form your
Yeah.
opinions about culture and the importance of what it means in our lives?
I mean, I don't think I really formed my opinion of this kind of culture until I started working in, I guess, you start going to work and you realize work environments are also cultures. Whereas, typically, obviously, you could probably tell from my accent that I'm Australian. I think of cultures more like, okay, you've grown up in Australia. I've got the Australian culture. I'm not Aboriginal, so I don't have that, the First Nations culture of Australia. There's cultures from different countries, and that's what I originally thought of it. And then, as I said, when you work in spaces that probably have bad culture, that's when you realize you go, oh, this is toxic. This is not doable. This is not maintainable. And that's when that's why I've developed Quench is because, for me, I needed a space that could provide all these things that facilitated happiness in my life. And so I wanted to start a place that the basis of it was a healthy culture because you've got to be in a healthy culture to thrive.
Hmm. And had you in the past, so I understand, you moved to Victoria,
Hmm.
maybe you can tell a bit more of that story, but maybe before like, had there been points in your life where you really noticed that you were in the right culture, like, things seemed to click, and then
Yeah.
you may have, like, fallen out of that and you were looking for that again when you moved?
I don't that wasn't what I was searching for. I was searching for when I moved a way to keep myself happy, that my life had taken a really shitty turn and I was in a lot of shock. And I can dive into that a bit deeper. But when you're talking, I think honestly, when I think of workplace cultures, I think of the bad ones I was in, and they're the ones that actually, for me, it was maybe like hitting that rock bottom that makes you go, "Oh, this could be so much better," you know? So those were the things for me that's like, okay, I wanna create a space where people feel seen, where people feel heard, where people can conveniently engage in the things that I believe support a happy life, and they can engage with it as much or as little as they want. We just facilitate it. So if someone wants to take a fitness class, they can. If someone wants to go to a games night, they can, but they don't have to. And that's where we all have that autonomy on how we receive these things.
Maybe you can share a little bit more about the sort of state you were in and why you're in it when you, first, had to kind of
Yeah.
figure out what you were gonna do.
Yeah. So for my background is I'm a musician, and then I also worked in this sort of mental health work, so frontline work, women's transition houses and youth centers and so forth. But I was always doing music as well. And so back in 2024, I was working, but also I was primarily working as a mum because I had two little kids that had just turned 3 and 5. And when suddenly my marriage completely imploded, it was a complete shock to me. And I really was walking, and I'm a really positive person. And so there's not much that really knocks me down. I'm very grateful I'm not someone who suffers from, how do I put this? I'm really grateful my brain is able to adapt really quickly.
Mhm.
And so I am grateful for that. But yeah, at that time, I was in such shock. I had two little kids. My parents had come over from Australia to help me. The marriage was done. I was stuck in this town called Squamish.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh, I don't want to be in Squamish for the rest of my life. Like, I was here because of my husband. And I was like, what do I do? But still a deer in headlights. And also having to be aware that everything I was feeling and was being directly put onto my children too.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I moved with the kids to Victoria because I needed a place that had more culture,
Mhm.
had more music. And sorry, Squamish has a lot of culture, but it's just not the culture that I'm so much in tune with.
Yeah.
It's the mountaineering world, it's skiing world,
Yeah.
it's all very
Raincoats,
bit more of
hiking.
that raincoats, fleece, a little
Yeah.
bit more of the hedonistic sort of lifestyle there. Um, and I wanted more arts and culture, and I wanted to see people doing lots of interesting things. And so anyway, I moved to Victoria with my kids, and and it was a hard move because I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't have the community that I had in Squamish. And I was like, okay, Tessa, you know what? You got to turn this around, girl. No one else is going to do this but you. And I was like, you've got to do whatever you can to keep yourself happy and joyful. And for me, I really believed that that was like keeping myself educated, staying up to date on just staying knowledgeable on what's going on in our society, in the world, and learning new things and exercising and eating well and meeting new people and engaging in different activities. And so I started doing all these things. Meanwhile, newly single parenting these two little people that were themselves going through their own pain. And and I was like, holy crap, man, this trying to stay happy is making me kind of depressed because it's so busy. like to maintain all this is like makes you so busy. And I was just like, why is this all under one roof? This could just be so easily under one roof. And right at that time, I was like, oh, I'm going to build that. And I had no idea how. I was like, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to build that because I know I'm not unique and other people must be wanting this too. And then I went on a venture of people telling me that no one else would want it. And why would people pay for that? And, trying to figure out, I didn't know anything about business, except I will say that being a performer or an artist, you are running your own business. So I just sort of started like applying all the things I'd learned from being an independent musician to okay, how do I build this? Who do I need to meet? How do I negotiate real estate? How do I find the money? What the hell is an angel investor? What do they mean? What do I want, debt or equity? And like all these things that I had no clue about. Yeah. And I just started doing it. And honestly, I think that I I didn't want to be knocked down. I had been knocked severely down, and I was like, mm-mm, no, you're not going to control my life. I'm the one who's in control of this. I want to show my kids what it is to get back up. I want them to be proud. I want them to have a good life, really, with a mum that's happy and doing things that make other people happy. Because that is what makes us happy, isn't it? Making other people happy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
I'm wondering where you like drew that strength from at that time. It sounded very difficult and like complete shift in your life. That was about 10, 12 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, nearly 12 years ago now.
Eh,
Pretty crazy.
were there more, parents or just people that you looked up to that kind of, you know, you could draw some strength from during that time, or did you just muster it up from within?
I always say my biggest asset is my family. Like, they are incredible. My parents are just like, they're just the most beautiful people. You've seen the chessboard that my dad's built in here, and um, they're just so helpful and loving. And that's one thing that I think is the biggest asset is coming from a loving family. I knew that even though they were far away, I didn't have any family in Canada. That was definitely part of the pain for me, was that I couldn't go back to Australia. And yeah, I think, where did I draw the strength from? Look, I mean, like, I'm the one that's in control of my life. So I'm the only one who can change the situation. And I don't want to gloss over it and make it sound so it was easy. It was not. It was a really traumatic time. There was a lot, when you're negotiating and navigating divorce, as well as co-parenting, as well as trying to start a business, as well as trying to heal. Like, it's really horrible, and I was pretty broken for quite a few years. I would say, it wasn't till year 3 or 4 I started really being myself again. But I think it was that I had that purpose, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna build something. I'm gonna change my life. I'm gonna make this better for me and the kids." And, I don't know where that came from. I think well, I'm dyslexic, which I think is a little part of that, where, you go to school, people, schools, they teach this way to grow this grain of rice, this strand, what do you call it, of and like, this is how we build kids, this is how we educate them. And of course, any of us who are neurodiverse, we don't fall within that. And so we have to figure out ways to learn the things that they're teaching everybody and I always, so we have to come at it from different angles. So I think probably I had that resilience from growing up dyslexic and just being like, okay, yeah, well, I got to figure it out myself, don't I?
Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really love hearing more people talk about, yeah, that neurodiversity. And I think that
Yeah,
dyslexic conversation is getting a little bit louder, which is fantastic to see. And you see so many
I do
really
too.
successful, influential people reference that. which is incredible. I'm curious around the building of Quench. I know a little bit about the story just from reading and listening, but as far as obviously it's expensive to the space that you're in now is 25,000 square feet, if I understand. I guess that's
Yes.
expensive, and you built it so beautifully. So it's not necessarily a bootstrapped venture, necessarily. So how did you maybe you can share a little bit about the, like, influential partners and investors that you've able to gain along the way, and maybe even some of the, disappointments that you had to get through and rejection that you had to get through along the way, um, to achieve those partners that you did get on board. Just a quick interruption to chat about my company, First Session. Have you had a less than ideal experience looking for a therapist? There are lots of options out there, but it's hard to know where to get started and who to trust. My company, First Session, focuses entirely on creating the best experience finding a therapist. We vet and verify each therapist we work with, interview them on camera, and allow you to browse on your own time to see who you vibe with. You can see updated availability and book directly with them. No phone calls, no email back and forths. Run through videos and find the right therapist for you the first time at firstsession.com.
Yeah, it was incredibly frustrating. It was a real journey. I mean, I'm not yeah, people know that we know through studies that women don't get given money. Typically, when we go to the bank, we're asked to have more assets, and then we get a lower rate, a lower amount of loan, and we're at a higher interest rate compared to men. We know that with any sort of venture capital money, that only 2% of that goes towards women. So the finding the money, especially as a single mum with no assets and no job, was incredibly difficult and super frustrating. And I got to this. When you get in that sort of headspace and you can't unsee things, and so I just kept seeing all the inequity, and I just kept seeing the double standards
Mm,
everywhere. And it would frustrate the hell out of me. Like, I'd see these young tech boys come in and, get given a couple of million for an idea. And I had, like, while I was building this location, I already had another location that I was running. And it was profitable, but no one would give me money still because, it wasn't that sort of deemed as, I guess, that unicorn sort of
mhm.
business, and no one understood it. So it was incredibly frustrating. I had to get to a point where I just had to accept it. I didn't sleep much at all for 2 years. In fact, I was talking to a friend about it the other day, and it still brings like the stress through my body. Um, my kids were, when was this? So my kids were like 8 and 10 or 7 and 9. I was, single parenting 98% of the time.
Wow.
I slept maybe 3 to 4 hours a night for probably about 2 years, because I was just desperately trying to find the money, trying to understand what people were looking for, trying to understand why they didn't want to invest in what I was doing. I would get, luckily, I had these two beautiful friends that were neighbors, and they had been watching me just work like crazy. And they're both artists, and they just loved what I was building. They really believed in what I was building, and they gratefully put in some money at the beginning, and they were the ones that really got me going. And then it came time to having to sign a lease on this building, and I had a clause in it that said if I hadn't found the money, which I needed to raise about 1.2 or 1.3 million, and if I didn't have that money by the time that I actually had to sign the lease, that I could pull out. And I was, oh man, Rob, I was just like, seriously? Like, I have tried everything. I've gone to every bank. I've talked to every investor. I've made connections with these people. I've gone to the Women's Equity Lab. I've gone to, all these things. And I just couldn't get the money. And so it came time to sign that lease. And of course, my realtor and my lawyer and my parents were just like, darling, you can't sign it. Don't sign the lease.
Hmm.
And I remember going to bed that night and I was just like, you know what, universe? I don't think that you've got me this far without wanting me to be here. So if I don't get a sign from you tomorrow that you don't want me to sign that lease, I am going to sign it because I'm going to trust that you've got something in store for me. So anyway, I went to bed. I didn't get a sign. So I signed the lease. And I mean, so it was definitely really nerve-wracking, and, I was putting a lot of trust in, I don't know what, the universe, karma, I don't know, a god, whatever you wanna call it. Yeah, and luckily, about a month later, oh god, it still brings stress up in my body. It's so interesting how that happens, hey? But, yeah, about a month later, a guy came into my old location and was just like, "I just love what you've built here. It's so amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, thanks." You know, and he's like, "I wanna help. I work, for Scotiabank." And I was like, "Good luck, buddy, because the bank don't like this. Like, I've tried." And he was incredible. He was just like, "Leave it with me." And I said, "I don't have time to apply for bank loans." And he was just like, "Leave it with me. I'm gonna help you." And he did it.
My goodness.
He got me the rest of the money. I know it made me really realize you got to get someone who's on your side, who's advocating for you, who's really like he would really, really pushed to get me that money, and he got it.
Like, it's amazing to hear that. First of all, this whole story is so badass. That's amazing. I love that you signed the lease, after being told by everyone not to do it. That is amazing. And it's like equally parts frustrating and magical that this
Yeah,
person walked in and worked for one of the biggest banks in Canada. Well, there's only like 5 of them,
yeah,
right? And it's like, well, all of the structured approaches that you're supposed to do didn't work, and you just happen to, it's like magical, but also frustrating at the same time, right? Well, I need to have some person, to get me across
yeah,
the line. And the whole time you've been telling this story, and with this rejection and with the just inequity, like everywhere that can't stop seeing, right? I think about how you built Quench as a member myself, and how you have such inclusivity built into the, you know, bones of
yeah.
the space. I don't know what you were like before all this rejection, but I imagine some of this rejection might have provided you motivation to lift others up and make them feel, you know,
Absolutely.
included.
I've always been someone. My mum used to say that I would always stick up for the underdog, and I got blackboard dusters thrown at my head, sticking up for people, and so I've always done that. But I think that, yeah, I think this is one thing it's really made me do is really sort of trust my own, not instinct, but trust that that I know what to do.
Mhm.
Because often during the building process, I kept going, "Well, I don't know what to do. I'm a musician." And because people kept telling me that too. "Oh, well, have you built a business before?" "No." "Well, good luck with your hobby," kind of thing. And so you're being told that you don't know what to do. And then you're told you can't afford loans. You're told you all this. And so what it's really made me realize is like, no, I do. I'm going to keep building what I would want because once again, I'm not unique. So other people want this. And so I just keep building, we've added the gym in. I want a gym there. I've always wanted a gym in there. Like let's make accessing staying healthy and well easy, So yeah, I don't think I really answered your question there, but
No, no, I mean, one thing that strikes me, well, 2 things that strike me is again, just it sounds like the conviction that you have has just been built up over, day after
yeah,
day, right? And just being told that, basically coming from one identity of musician to now you're an entrepreneur that you can do many,
Yeah.
many things, right?
Weird.
And,
So weird.
of course, a mother and friend and leader and all those things. But yeah, I think it's just some people's ability to shy away from that sort of shift in belief in themselves and holding themselves too small because they think that they're haven't done like everyone does it for the first time,
Yeah.
right? But it's so
Well,
hard.
and
But
I
even
think
at your, age, like, you know what I mean? That's like
yeah.
a misconception in society where, if you're at that stage of life, you can't be taking those risks. Um,
Oh, and I think you bring up a really interesting point there is, often you see these best under 30 and best under 40, but this is a side note to that. But I look at the women who have kids and I'm just like, holy crap, the amount that they juggle, the amount that I was dealing with ex-spouse, things weren't smooth. I would get emails from him about things while I was trying to get money for Quench. So I'd have to then navigate, put on my hat for that. Then having two kids that you're trying to navigate, then you're like, okay, how am I building this company? How am I building trust within the community? And I think I've kind of lost my train of thought there, but it's a stressful thing. And honestly, I think that if I hadn't lost the predictability of married life and because it all just got pulled away with one, like it was like a fry pan over my head. So it all just got my life as I'd seen it was just gone. And I think that I was kind of like, well, what have I got to lose? Like, keep my kids close. I've got family that loves me. That's the most important thing. So, yeah, if I build something and it doesn't work, at least I tried, At least I tried to do it. And I had a neighbor that said to me, I was like, I really want to do this. And he's like, well, Tessa, you're always going to regret you're not doing it, but you're never going to regret doing it. So just do it. So
I
yeah.
love that. Yeah, I think what we were talking about before is like, what you were saying is that the sort of like 30 under 30 list is, people make it out to be so
Yeah.
impressive, but at the same time, like what else do these people got going on in their 20s, you know? So the most impressive list is, people with kids and single parenting. Like that is the list that, should be the front page
Yeah.
of Forbes or whatever magazine you you want to.
Especially when they tell us, "Oh, it's like over 40, then, what use are we?" kind of thing. Yeah, I think I've got other entrepreneur mother friends, women, and I look at the massive amount of stuff they have to balance. And, it's what keeps us good at what we do, quite honestly,
Yeah,
because we're used to doing that.
yeah.
It's like we're not single focused. It's like, okay, how, oh, this isn't working. Okay, how can I adapt quickly to something else?
Yeah.
And how do I not hold ego to that thing that's not working?
Tessa, I'm
You
probably
know?
not the right business partner for this, but I think you just conceptualize a new business.
Oh, did I?
Single
What
mothers,
was it?
entrepreneurship,
Uh,
none of this 30 under 30, 40 under 40, but let's
yeah.
celebrate single mothers building businesses and community and giving back to their communities. That should be the
Yeah.
biggest award ranking of the year. I think Kwench can start that as a sub project.
Okay.
Here's one more thing for you to do in your busy life.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the concept of sort of entrepreneurship as art. Like when you're speaking and creation, like when you're speaking, like you speak like a true artist and creator. And I think that's really special. Whereas I come from, I mean, I did business in school and a lot of my friends went into finance and I started thinking that I had to go and work at a bank or consulting firm. And it was just like such a
Right.
terrible fit, which I didn't realize at the time. But
That's so interesting.
um,
Yeah. And now look where you are.
yeah,
Mm.
but I had to try and just kind of be uncomfortable again. I think it was a culture piece. I was like, what is this? People wearing these suits and like trying to do these things for these big companies. But you're if you're in the like business, as I think you alluded to, like tech bro or whatever, finance culture. It's just like people speak about businesses in a money first way, and they
Yeah.
speak about it in a numbers first way. I've never heard you speak about your business in that sense at all. And I think that's really
No.
refreshing. And I'm wondering like how you've been able to maintain that even though you've had to like go
Hmm.
raise money and, show like obviously pay yourself and pay your staff and like, have the accounting and
Yeah.
finances. Like, how do you maintain this? How do you not get corrupted by the finance people?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have to make money. Like to be offering the things that we do, we have to make money. And, we are running a business. It is a business and we have to be profitable. And I definitely want to make money for those people who took a risk with me.
Mhm.
So my investors. But look, we're a B Corp. I know you've just spoken to Jill and she's a B Corp too. She was with Fatso. It's really important to me that the primary focus is how we're making impact. So we have to make money and we can make more impact by making money. That's the beauty of it. But the primary focus of a B Corp is society, our impact on society and the environment. And third to that is then returning a profit for your investors.
Mhm.
So I love that I'm part of that. And it was my investors who told me to go to become B Corp. So I'm really lucky that way.
Not to interrupt, but I find a lot of brands
No.
do the B Corp thing. I'm sure there's like mostly, or I shouldn't judge here, but like the intentions are often good. But I think a lot of people do the B Corp in a consumer type product to kind of gain the marketing kind of chops
Yeah,
and the appeal. But like,
I'm sure.
it's not like you're putting B Corp on the front door of Quench or anything like that, right? It's just something that you want to do.
Not yet. We probably should, but I mean, it's definitely we should. Someone said to me the other day, because I was like, oh, well, I don't really like shouting from the rooftops what we do. Like, we do lots of sponsorship for the Indigenous community and the BIPOC community, the queer community, but I don't shout it. If they want to shout it, go for it. And someone said to me, oh, you're green blushing. That's what you are. That
Mm,
term's called green blushing. And I was like, oh, there's a term for it? So, I mean, we should, I think we will at some point start to sort of talk about more of the things that we do because maybe it'll inspire other companies to do it. I don't know. I like being a B Corp. You were asking about like purpose driven, the art of it. I just think if it's that authentic thing, isn't it? Like if you're being true to what you feel here, then it will show. Like, it's authentic. It shows when you come in here. Like, when someone comes in looking for an office in Quench, if I don't think that that office is what they need, even though I need to sell that office, I'm not going to sell it to them. I don't want someone in here who's like, "Oh, no, we're in a 1-year lease and we shouldn't even be in here." Like, that's not what it's about. We want this place to be authentic. We expect our members to be true, inclusive, and authentic. And, yeah, that's why I have to lead with that, don't I?
yeah. Yeah. I don't think we've covered the acronym of Quench yet.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
That was a funny one. So it's spelt KWENCH and it stands for knowledge, wellness, experiences, novelty, curious and connection bring health and happiness. So when I was coming up with the name, I had those pillars. I had knowledge, I had wellness. Obviously, I had connection and community, which are the most important thing for leading a happy life, and I had play. So when I finally came up with when I saw the word quench spelt differently, I was like, oh well, let me substitute play for novelty. But yeah, I came up with some interesting words. It was like months of one of them was we were talking about this the other day. One of them was Keach because I also wanted I needed a K in it because of knowledge, but I also knew that K is a pretty unique letter to use in marketing and brands
Mhm.
because there aren't that many and they're all quite noticeable. So yeah, Keach was one of them. And it's a Yiddish term for I can't remember now, but I think it's Yiddish term for like community or coming together or something like that. And so I'd say to people, "Oh, I think I'm going to call it Keech," and people would be like, "What?" And I'd be like, Ke- Keech," and they're like, "How do you spell it?" And I go, "Oh, okay." So, or another one was hark. I wanted to call it hark. So I had the happiness, I had the knowledge, and then people were like, "Yeah, no, that it just sounds too hark the herald angels sing." And so anyway, it's just so fun. And then I still have the piece of paper where I finally wrote down Quench, and I was like, there it is. It's so great. And you have to say, because you brought it back to that creativity thing, almost everything that I do at Quench or building Quench, I relate back to music. It's so funny. And I'll so when I was developing like a pitch deck for Quench, I kept saying, I've got the lyrics, I've got the tune, but I don't have the lick. Like I don't have the thing that's catching people. And I needed that like one tagline. But to me, it was like, what's the lick? What's the lick that's gonna catch everybody's attention? Or, there were just so many other things that I did that I kept relating back to writing a song. Like, okay, how would I so if I was writing a song, how would I do this? So what is the bridge here? Like, what's that part
Mm.
that's going to join these two concepts together, which is exactly what you do in music. Where's the bridge that's joining the verses and it's with the chorus and yeah,
I love that. I love that analogy. It's so clear that just I mean, I have worked in, I think I've told you this before, but I've worked in other co-working spaces from WeWork to some other ones back in Toronto,
yeah,
and it's just, yeah, the feeling is unique, and I think the more people come to Quench, the more they realize. So, um, a couple more. I
that's
got
cool. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible. Um, I have a couple more questions for you. You've been at this now for a number of years. I mean,
Yeah,
I heard soon after you moved into this space, COVID hit, right?
4 months. Yeah,
Yeah, that's terrible. Terrible timing. And like all the several years of like 3 to 4 hours a night of sleep. My question
yeah,
is, now that you're sort of, maybe you feel like you're past the, first mountain, or maybe second mountain,
yeah.
how do you, like, what do you get out of it? What keeps you going?
Oh, like comments like you just said, or I love it when I see relationships that have been built that I've had nothing to really do with, but except created a space. Like the moment, so when you're designing something on paper, and I'm like, okay, this is how I want this because this is where I feel those water cooler moments will be. And we have a really big island in the kitchen where everybody, like 12, 13 people, could sit around it. And I remember the first time, it made me a little emotional. I walked in the building. We didn't actually have our front stairs built yet, so we came up the side. And I just remember hearing quite a bit of like members were in and sort of walking past, and I just sort of looked over, and there was like a team of people just like sitting, chatting, talking, and I got really like emotional because I was like, "Oh my gosh, there it is." There's those moments that, you know, that's the stuff that keeps me going. People that come to me and say, "I was so depressed at home. I didn't know how lonely I was. And now I come to a community and I feel like I really belong." People who walk in the front door and say to me, "Your team is so amazing. They know my name. They ask me about my kids. They ask me," that's the stuff that I love hearing when it's really impacted people's lives in a positive way, because that's what we're here for. Yeah, we're here to also, you know, ensure that you can work well and meet people and be part of something, but it's when it actually impacts their life to a point where they're like, "My mental health is so much better. Like, I'm a better person."
And how do you balance your own, like, super high attention to member experience, like showing members the
Yeah.
best possible experience, creating the best possible experience with managing your own team and making sure that their culture, your internal culture is, what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And because you care so much, how do you
I don't
hire for
know.
that? How do you?
I think, I mean, we attract a certain type of person for sure. I don't know the answer. I think I'm still learning. We're looking, as you know, we've been looking at locations to move to in Vancouver and Toronto and Hamilton. But at the moment, Vancouver's on our list. And yeah, I'm definitely, I get nervous because I'm just like, oh, how are we going to be able to carry this over? Because that's the biggest thing people ask me. How can you replicate you? And I'm not 100% sure
Sounds
yet
like an investor
how.
question.
That's an investor
Yeah.
question. But it's like, how do we set the tone? Okay, I remember this moment in Fort Street when we were over there, and I used to sit at the front desk. So I did everything back there. I cleaned everything. I was in on the weekends cleaning. I was um, front desk. I was doing everything. And I remember sitting at the front desk at one point, and there was a new member in the kitchen, and one of our older members came in and just stopped at this. Well, hey, how are you? Oh, and they did what I typically do, which is, oh, hey, I haven't met you yet. Are you new here? Okay, or what's your thing? What do you do? Like, oh, and I heard them doing it, and I was like, oh my gosh, now they're doing what what my job would be. So the members are actually the ones facilitating and setting the tone, which was
Hmm.
incredible.
Hmm.
And I mean, I have this story, if you've got time, where my son got really sick with meningitis when I had Fort Street. And I was the only one there. I was the only one working, and I literally had to be in isolation with him. And I didn't know I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And so I called one of our members, and I was just like, could you open the club for me? And all of the members came out to help. "Yes, so and so is gonna open it. So and so is gonna close it. This is what's, gonna happen now. Oh, by the way, we got 2 new members." And, so I was away for, like, 4 days. They opened and closed the club, and they got 2 new members. That's amazing
Wow.
to me. That's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that is incredible. On that point, do you feel, based on kind of the stage of your kids, the age that they're at, and
Yeah,
and their development,
totally different.
now, has that motivated you to sort of set your heights to a new level? Like, is the expansion now for a reason because your kids are older, or is there other reasons?
Yeah. Look, I mean, the expansion was supposed to happen a while ago, but then we got hit with a pandemic for a few years, and now we've got interest rates that are knocking everyone for six. I just realized that term is probably not a
Is that an
Canadian
Aussie
term, but
term?
anyway,
Yeah.
that's okay. I think cricket,
Okay.
six. Anyway, um, yeah, they're at a totally different age. Like, they don't need me around. If I'm late home from work, they're happy. Um, you know, I can go and be in Vancouver for the day and a night, and they love it, kind of thing. I mean, they're still teenagers and they still need me, but definitely not as
Mhm.
much. And that's good. I think for me, I mean, I would really like to move back to Australia for some time, or at least have some of my year in Australia. And so there was always that drive for me to open up in Australia too. So, get a great network in Canada, whether or not we expand to the States, or we just stay in Canada and then we go and open some in Australia. I don't want Quench to be a WeWork or a Regis or an Industrious. I think what's really important for me is keeping this culture, and for me, culture is built on trust, and trust does not grow fast. Trust is built over time. So, you know, saying, "Oh, great, you've got to open up 12 locations in a year," that doesn't work, because I'll go to Hamilton, no one will know who I am. They're not gonna believe in the brand. They're not gonna believe, so for me, it's not a rapid growth, but a really strategic and thoughtful growth.
And besides wanting to, sort of reward your investors and the risk takers who believed in
Mhm.
you early on, um, what do you think you'll get out of it, assuming that you can expand, places that are flight distance away, possibly Australia flight
Yeah.
distances away? I
Yeah.
mean, I know Australia, likely have a lot, family there. But for example, moving across the country, Ontario, is it just seeing kind of your baby grow, or what else do you foresee getting out of it? Besides the financial gains.
I love the impact too. I've seen the impact that Quench has made on Victoria. And I love seeing that. I love seeing people thriving in here and how much the Quench community means to them. And we have people from Toronto coming in going, "Oh my gosh, I wish you could be there." And if we can build these great communities where people can thrive and grow, and who knows what we do with them from there. But I think that's this way of working is staying. I truly believe that co-working as a industry will move away from real estate, and I believe it's more of a hospitality play, because I think that you know, people want the services. They don't want just space. I mean, I have this thing that I say in nearly every interview, but it's just like, we've all been in jobs. We've all stayed in jobs that we hate the job because we love the people. And we've all left jobs that we love because we hate the people. So it's the people and the community that are the thing. And if Quench can build those communities, I think that's what I'd like. And if I can sit back and watch it do it itself, that's amazing. And maybe I'll consult a little bit. And, I mean, the big picture for me is I want to get back into one day into women's safety. I think that children and women's safety is so massive. The more loved and secure we can bring our kids up, then those systemic problems that come through society won't be there. And so if some way I can help through building Quench, we can help build that as well. I think that'll be a win-win for me.
That's incredible. I think that's a lovely place
Yeah.
to end the conversation today. Thank you so much. And curious
Yeah, you're welcome.
if you are showcasing any of your art, or Quench's website, I believe is clubquench.com.
Yeah, clubquench.com. Yeah, that's where you
Do
can
you have
find
a
us.
list on your website or a form or something where people can request expansion, expand here?
You know what? That is a great idea, because we've just been asked in Vancouver to get a list of people who want to
Awesome.
um who would be willing to take up residence in our
Okay.
Vancouver location.
Well,
So thank you for that. I will get on that.
maybe by the time people listen to this, they can find that and
Yeah.
request Quench in their location. But thank you, Tessa. We'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
Thanks,
Have a
Rob.
wonderful day. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Actualize podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode, as well as all other episodes, at firstsession.com/podcast. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.